everyone. Thank you guys so much for having me today. And thanks for the warm introduction. Filecoin has been doing DePIN for a long time, and we are very excited to see this ecosystem growing and contributing to it, both from a storage perspective. What do all large-scale infrastructure networks need? We need large-scale storage that can also meet the decentralized needs of our infrastructure networks and our communities. But we also need tooling and many building blocks that other DePIN networks can use, and we have trod this ground for a long time in the Filecoin ecosystem and have some fundamental building blocks and tools that we can share with other DePIN networks as they come along on this journey with us. So I'd love to talk with you about Filecoin, the L1 storage layer for Web3 and for DePIN. As a reminder, the mission of Filecoin is to create a decentralized, efficient, and robust foundation for humanity's information. This really does expand beyond just storage into creating a platform for many different builders to write smart contracts that are interacting with storage, run compute jobs over the storage that they've done with great partnerships with folks like Fluence and others who are adding that programmability and capability into our substrate for decentralized storage infrastructure. You can really break down Filecoin's trajectory towards this mission into three main steps: building the world's largest decentralized storage network, which we've done. There are thousands of storage providers around the world that are providing exabytes of storage in the Filecoin ecosystem. We've onboarded and safeguarded humanity's data into this large-scale capacity. There's now, I think, over an exabyte of data actually actively being stored inside the Filecoin network by thousands of clients around the world. And step three is bringing compute to the data and powering web-scale applications to run and operate their backends off of Filecoin as a storage network, and bring additional tooling and features that can support many other DePIN networks that are interoperating with Filecoin storage or with the compute networks that are running on top of it to actually meet end-user needs and use cases. Here's a couple of examples of the fantastic clients and data sets that are storing their data with Filecoin today: University of Utah, UC Berkeley, Victor Chang Institute, and CERN, and many, many others who have brought their large-scale research, educational, nonprofit, Web3 data into the Filecoin ecosystem and are using it as a verifiable, trustless store for their most important info. We also, just a year ago, launched the Filecoin virtual machine. This unlocked an EVM-compatible smart contract layer on top of Filecoin, which allows you to start deploying all sorts of programmability tools on top of your data storage. This allows you to do cross-chain bridging, to have loan markets for storage providers to get access to capital and liquidity. This enables things like data DAOs, which allow you to make all sorts of interesting collections of data that can be then governed by DAOs and smart contracts, can have their own multi-sigs where they accrue more resources. And we've just seen a phenomenal unlocking of new capabilities, perpetual data storage mechanisms where you can program on top of the storage primitives in Filecoin to unlock all sorts of great new ideas generated by a massive community of builders. So I want to talk to you a little bit about Filecoin in 2024 and some of the things that we as a community are focused on and how they intersect with all of the amazing builders in the DePIN space. These are kind of the three main areas that I'll chat about today. One is Filecoin L2s, how many DePIN networks such as Fluence are building on top of some of the infrastructure we've built in Filecoin land, harnessing the massive community of storage providers with all of the hardware they've already brought to these large-scale networks to then power compute and DePIN networks built on the same kind of substrate and infrastructure as Filecoin. Number two is Filecoin as the storage layer of Web3, and that means all of DePIN as well, and the new L2s that are building specifically tuned for DePIN, for gaming and social media applications, for Web3 chain storage, things like that. And last but not least, how we all collectively are working to scale the Filecoin economy, actually bringing in paying customers, which for all DePIN networks, you start with a larger scale community of infrastructure providers, but the most important part is actually matching those infra providers with their paying customers building the credibility of your infrastructure network and the services it can provide, and then growing a larger and larger community of paying customers as well. So Filecoin, 3 years in, is deep in the midst of bringing onboarding large-scale customers and scaling their paid demand as well. All right, so I mentioned L2s. This is a new and very exciting phase for Filecoin. We had storage, we launched the FVM, and now we've unlocked a whole new community of people who are building layer 2 networks on top of Filecoin, utilizing the interplanetary consensus protocol and framework to create highly programmable subnets that can scale Filecoin's capability set, bring new services into this DePIN offering that can significantly augment what people can expect from overall infrastructure networks in Web3. So what is interplanetary consensus, or IPC as we like to call it? It's a scalability blockchain technology that's focused on these planetary scale Web3 apps, and it's highly tuned and customized for DePIN networks that want to build very robust, very scalable infrastructure-oriented networks. IPC subnets each run their own consensus and can be highly customized to meet different use cases. It is a tree of hierarchical networks that can branch off of any L1 network and be tuned and hyper-optimized for different use cases. The structure here is, you can imagine having a gaming subnet that actually in and of itself has specific subnets for each game, which can be highly scalable and focused on executing that particular gaming operation. You could have a database subnet that is sharded into its own separate subnets. Or you could even have your gaming subnet sharding across different geographical regions, where you then have extremely fast block times and operations that are optimized for specific areas of the world. And the way that IPC subnets are structured, they are aiming to be cloud-like level processes that you spin up. We don't believe that the long-term vision of highly constrained block space and gas models inside of a single blockchain network is going to be the long-term future for Web3. If we're going to cross the chasm and provide a fundamental infrastructure layer that all Web3 applications, or all applications, all internet applications can build on, we're going to need to have the scalability and the kind of geographical flexibility that we've seen with Web2 data centers. And that's what IPC is optimizing for. I mentioned every subnet is hyper-tunable. You can have your own specialized WASM actors deployed inside your subnet, like how Fluence has the RandomX WASM actor that's kind of critical for the compute offering there. You can have custom syscalls. You can use your own native token. You can bring your own FVM runtime even. The first runtime we've started with FVM is EVM, so that all smart contracts and builders can use normal vanilla EVM Solidity and just port their applications really easily and simply, use all of the existing tooling there in the EVM use case. But if you want to bring your own native FVM runtime, maybe that's Solana, maybe that's JavaScript, maybe that's a WASM interpreter, FVM is designed as a hypervisor where you can plug in your own runtime as your own actor and customize it in that way. And so the model and vision for our IPC is hyper optimizable and tunable for your own use case. And the aim here is frictionless DX. So if you're excited about potentially using this, feel free to come and talk to us. Filecoin is just one of the service networks that is harnessing IPC. We also see many different services being able to coexist in a shared framework where they can interoperate smoothly between hot storage layers, compute networks, CDNs, databases, indexing engines. This is a swarm of different services that you want to augment and extend each other seamlessly. And it's been awesome to see Fluence as the first L2 that's come to Filecoin. It's IPC powered, and it's bringing all of that compute capability into the Filecoin ecosystem, working directly with storage providers to harness their existing resources and also augment their existing data storage with rich compute capabilities. So Filecoin, IPC, these are built for DePINs. They help DePINs scale, whether that's from a storage angle or from an infrastructure and tooling angle. And if you want to learn more about IPC, you can check out the website right there, ipc.space. Next, talking about Filecoin as the storage layer for Web3. Some folks might have seen kind of the layer architecture. We have our consensus layer. That's your L1s, Ethereum, Filecoin, Solana, the networking layer, which is libp2p, the data layer of Filecoin, and then all of your infrastructure layer like VMs and beyond. And Filecoin has really been focused on large-scale data users. Some of those are, large-scale institutions that are bringing data archives to Filecoin, but some of those are like Solana that are bringing their entire chain history to Filecoin. The Triton team, which runs one of the largest RPC providers in Solana, helped bring the entire Solana data set and chain archive into Filecoin so that now if you, as a new node in the Solana network or an existing node that needs to reprove the state from Genesis, you can fetch that data and the archival chain history from Filecoin instead of having to pay exorbitant bandwidth costs to a centralized infrastructure provider or RPC node. So significantly improving kind of the robustness and resiliency of Web3 networks. And we really see Filecoin expanding in this area and being a fundamental infrastructure layer for all of Web3, where you can then be indexing all of your chain data, you can then be decentralizing your RPC providers, and you can have the robustness and decentralization that Web3 relies upon for all blockchain state and history. And we also see this happening for DePIN data that might be off-chain, where you might have massive, multi-terabyte data sets that are coming along with your WeatherXM weather archives. And it's been really awesome to see the Textile team build Basin, which is a new layer 2 protocol on Filecoin specifically tuned for DePIN data. And WeatherXM's been doing a pilot there to onboard their entire weather history across all of their decentralized weather nodes into the Filecoin ecosystem. And so if you haven't heard of Basin yet, I recommend going and checking it out. It's highly optimized for DePIN networks. It has an S3 compatible object storage API. It's super easy to integrate if you're maybe not yet using a truly decentralized storage layer, as you should be as a DePIN network. You don't want to be having any centralized points of failure for hosting all of your DePIN data, proving its end-to-end resiliency, making sure that you as a team aren't creating any centralized risk factors for your ecosystem. Textile Basin and Filecoin are a great way to have open access, large-scale collective archives of all of that data as well. And I think WeatherXM will talk to you about this a little bit more later today. There's other groups also who are expanding in this space. Akave, I think, will also be having a talk later today. They're focused highly on the decentralized AI and compute area, aiming to offer a storage L2 that's highly focused on being a large-scale data oasis in the digital data desert, which I think is a phenomenal turn of phrase, focused on building data lakes and interoperability so you can easily store the outputs of your compute jobs and then pull those snapshots or archives into the next compute run that you want to do, whether you're training an AI algorithm or just running your backend on top of a large-scale data storage, doing a processing run over top of all of your WeatherXM weather data, things like that. So go check them out. They are just getting started with some of their initial POC partners, and so now's a great time to talk to them. There's also, hot off the presses, is Storacha, which is highly focused on the Web3 gaming, digital media, and social use cases. Their website's fantastic. It's super fun. And so go check out Storacha. This is an evolution of Web3.storage, which is probably, who here has heard of Web3.storage or used it? Yeah? a good chunk of folks. It's one of the most used, easy to use entry points for storing Web3 data. It's all IPFS, Filecoin has all of the best practices, but to date has had centralized stopgaps that have been being run on centralized infrastructure and is now transitioning to a fully decentralized layer 2 network powered by Filecoin and IPC. So it's been really awesome to see this evolution of hot, fast storage networks into storage L2s that are fully decentralized and are bringing highly tuned interfaces and tooling to DePIN, to social and gaming, to compute and AI networks, so that all of them can have bespoke APIs and access to Filecoin's L1 robust storage, harnessing Filecoin's resources, but with very easy to use S3 APIs or access control layers through UCANs that are tuned for that specific use case and onboarding ramp, which is, I think, phenomenal evolution. Last but not least, the Filecoin economy is growing massively. Since the launch of FEM, we've seen a huge increase in DeFi businesses, and there were actually some phenomenal updates just yesterday about a new Filecoin bond market that Secured Finance is bringing to the FEM community, which is pretty cool, with stable coins backed with Phil on the horizon, which I'm really excited about. You should be too. There's also significant improvements overall to the OpEx of the Filecoin network, really reducing the costs for storage providers who are making deals. I just saw a fantastic demo from Ramo yesterday running a Filecoin storage provider node on, I don't mean to hate on Vuk's laptop, but what looked like a relatively dinky laptop, not super high power, did not have a terabyte storage drive somewhere there. And I think that's a phenomenal evolution towards this lean SP thesis. SPs in Filecoin are our storage providers. That's the backbone of the Filecoin network. And now we're really opening up access to participate in this market, whether or not you have large-scale compute resources, whether or not you have even large-scale hardware resources. You can come and participate in the network just with a laptop. And that's been like the vision of Filecoin since the very early days. And it's awesome to see that modularization and evolution of many different roles you can wear and subsets of the Filecoin network that you can support as an individual infrastructure provider. I mentioned also a key focus for every evolving DePIN network is to connect your infrastructure with the paying users. We're starting to see a growth in the paying user community in Filecoin, which is very exciting. We have over 30 petabytes of enterprise paid data storage that's kind of in the pipeline doing POCs with storage providers right now. And one of the big factors in that is demonstrating at scale that the retrievability of your data on Filecoin also scales for robust enterprise use cases or kind of what you need to host a website out of. And so we've implemented over the past year the Spark retrieval metrics project, which is using a decentralized DePIN network effectively called Filecoin Station that runs around the world. I think there's something like 15,000 station nodes. I run one on my laptop when it's open. And this helps have a distributed network check the retrievability of all data stored in Filecoin. And we've now seen over a 2x increase in overall retrievability network-wide. And the top 10 storage providers have over 90% retrieval success rate as sampled by this global distributed network. So that's pretty awesome as well. And overall, there's just, I think, a huge unlock to come for Filecoin as well as we launch the Fast Finality project, which is going to bring two block time finality to the Filecoin ecosystem, enabling much faster interop with other networks, much faster checkpointing from layer 2s that are building on top of Filecoin, and also more new opportunities in the DeFi and liquidity space as well. You may not have heard, but we launched the first Filecoin Retro PGF project just a couple months ago. We announced it at ETH Denver. We managed to actually execute it in the couple of months since then, which rewarded over 99 open source and public goods projects in the Filecoin ecosystem, distributing, I think it was actually a bit more than this, like 220,000 FIL to all of the amazing builders in the Filecoin community. We're planning to run the next Retro PGF round in just a couple of months. And this is an awesome opportunity to build reusable building blocks, not just for Filecoin, but also for wider DePIN networks. There's a lot of public goods here that we can also give back more broadly to the wider ecosystem. So if you are contributing those building blocks in DePIN, we'd love to talk to you. We'd love to include you in these ongoing Retro PGF rounds. And if you'd like to sponsor and contribute to sponsoring all of those public goods. We also have, I think we had like 5 or 6 sponsors to this past Retro PGF round, and I'm sure we'll have more in the next one. We'd love to include you there as well. So with that, let's make Web3 better together. Thank you so much for your time here.